We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with longtime host of Liberty Nation Radio, Tim Donner, and Legal Eagle and host of the Uprising podcast, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza, discussing the arrest and charges against Donald Trump. Now, earlier in the show, we discussed the legal aspects, so let's switch to the political for a moment here. Tim, what do you make of Donald Trump's reaction to the arrest and the charges being laid out before him?
Well, I think it was fairly predictable. He came back to Mar-a-Lago and he laid out what he felt was the outrage of this, this indictment. But I think he has to feel pretty good, honestly, because there wasn't a whole lot of there, right? It was like everybody was all dressed up and there was no place to go because there was nothing of real substance in the indictment beyond the fact that it was a process crime to begin with, which people can't relate to the way they can if someone is trying to fix an election or someone commits an assault on somebody or scandalously, talks about them or whatever it is. But he's got to feel pretty good because the next stage in this doesn't happen till December. So remember that the Republican debates begin in August. So think about what's going to happen here. You're going to have Trump in several debates before the second stage of this indictment and trial, if there is one.
Well, at least
you're going to have him
tend to get extended rather than reduced.
Right. So it could go, but at minimum, it goes to December. Trump is going to be in a position where he's going to be debating opponents or rivals in the Republican Party who are going to be forced to stand up for him. They're going to be forced to talk about how much they're outraged by the arrest of Donald Trump, right? So he's going to have a built-in advantage because it's still the 100-pound gorilla in the room. And yet, I mean, the other candidates will have to tread very lightly on the idea that he could be guilty. They're going to have to actually uphold his position. That's a huge advantage for Trump.
Do you know who made that exact point was Sidney Blumenthal, who I'm sure you're familiar with. He was the senior advisor to both President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. And he wrote, I think it was in The Guardian, that essentially every Republican approaching the national stage is going to have to, it's almost like a swearing of allegiance based on what Donald Trump's saying. And the idea that they can back out of that. I mean, we've had Mitt Romney in the last day or so. Obviously, he took time to add in that Trump's unfit for office, but he said that this persecution of Trump is a bad thing for America.
I thought that was quite, to be honest with you, because Romney hates Trump as much as anyone, and yet he felt compelled to speak out. I was quite surprised by that.
Okay, Scott, I have a question for you here, Scott. Now, Trump said during his Mar-a-Lago reception that Alvin Bragg should, or was it before, that Alvin Bragg himself should face felony charges for leaks that went out to CNN. And the leak specifically said, CNN ran with this the day before the arrest, that there will be 34 felony counts. So that leak turned out to be true. Now, I looked into this, and it seems that leaking grand jury information is, even in this day and age, Scott, a crime. Now, the question is, will anybody make a claim against him?
Is it a crime if no one is ever prosecuted for it? I would dare say that...
trees falling in woods.
That's the question of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. The, grand jury leaking from prosecutors' offices is rampant in the federal system. It's rampant in state systems, and nobody does a damn thing about it. And I just would guess that that's probably not going to change now and result, as a result of Mr. Trump's the leak about his case. But I support any, effort to actually clamp down on it because it's a disgrace. And like I say, prosecutors do this regularly. You read between the lines of so many stories regarding the work of grand juries, you can plainly see that a prosecutor's office is leaking.
But it's gone all the way up to the point of the Supreme Court was leaking in the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
I think that was less of a leak than some kind of an attack. I don't know where exactly it came from, but boy, that's an animal of a different stripe altogether.
But it just shows that all bets are off in areas that were considered sacrosanct decades ago, have now gotten to the point where all is fair in love, war, and politics. So if you leak, you're doing it for patriotic purposes.
Yeah, Scott, obviously Donald Trump does not want any trial to go ahead in Manhattan. I think that's understandable, right? Manhattan, I believe there's about 2 people in Manhattan who voted for Donald Trump ever.
He doesn't want a Manhattan jury is what you're saying. And I agree with you there.
So, I mean, Staten Island is probably the friendliest location within that district.
The friendliest borough in the city for Donald Trump is, I think, what you mean. And
exactly.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
Now, because there has been leaks from the grand jury, couldn't Trump's lawyers claim that, well, this is a tainted jury pool and therefore we request a move to Staten Island?
The information from which the jurors glean their news is likely not terribly different in Staten Island than it is across the bridges and tunnels in Manhattan.
Yeah, it's not that remote.
I mean, I guess you have more Post readers on the on Staten Island and more Times readers on Manhattan. But
yes,
the Times Post divide.
It's not like we're in a place where they could move the trial to Schenectady and people were like, who's this Donald Trump guy? I don't know. That'll be a place for a fair trial.
Yeah.
He's one of the most famous people in the world. He's the former past president of the United States of America. Where are you going to get this jury that is, Donald Trump is entitled to a jury that doesn't have bias against him, but he's not entitled to one from a particular, zip code that he favors. The bias is for a jury from that locale, unless the case can be made that jurors from that locale are impossibly biased, but they won't be in another locale. I don't know how you're going to do it, meaning you, the prospective prosecutor, is going to pick this jury. It's pretty daunting.
Okay, now don't go anywhere. On a Liberty Nation special edition, we're examining the ins and outs of the Trump arrest. We'll be right back after this short break. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.